Selena Warner always feared what waited above the ceiling. But she never imagined her childhood nightmare would follow her into adult life. Or that an attic in a quiet Michigan town would become the stage for a battle between a gentle ghost and something much darker.
Someone passed away in the house within the last 5 years.
Tonight, on True Haunting Log, we open the door to that attic. Once you hear what lived up there, you may never trust the dark above your head again. You are listening to True Haunting Log, where every story is drawn from real experiences, real witnesses, and real terror. No creepypasta. No campfire tales. Only the encounters that branded themselves into someone's life and never left. If you are new here, make yourself as comfortable as you can.
It's just my imagination.
Turn down the lights. Put on your headphones. And remember, when this is over, you still have to sleep.
Jim! Jim!
Tonight's case comes from southeastern Michigan. A small rental house, a tired single mother, a 3-year-old boy. A kind ghost trapped in the basement. And something cruel is hiding in the attic. This is the true story of the attic haunting in Michigan.
Help me! Somebody please help!
Selena Warner did not think of herself as brave. She thought of herself as tired. Tired from a painful divorce. Tired from packing everything she owned into cardboard boxes. Tired from carrying her whole world on one hip, her 3-year-old son, Alex. When she first drove into the little Michigan town, spring was just starting to warm the trees. Branches swayed above quiet streets. Children rode bikes along cracked sidewalks. It looked like the kind of place where bad things simply did not happen. The rental house sat halfway down Harper Street. 2 stories. White siding that had seen better days. A small front porch with room for a chair and a hanging plant. Nothing about it looked dangerous. Nothing about it screamed. The landlord was an older man with a polite smile and a jangling keyring. He walked Selena through the rooms. Cozy living room. Sunlit kitchen. A little backyard where she pictured a swing for Alex. Yes, it's older, the landlord said. But it's solid. You'll be happy here. Selena wanted to believe him. She needed this to work. Upstairs, the hall was narrow, with 2 bedrooms facing each other. Alex's room would be the one near the stairs, right under a modest ceiling light. But when Selena looked up, she saw it. A square outline in the ceiling. A narrow wooden hatch with a small metal latch. The entrance to the attic. An old fear rushed through her body like cold water. As a child, she had spent many nights staring at the ceiling, imagining footsteps above her bed. Imagining something crawling, pacing, waiting. The landlord noticed her looking. "That just goes to a little crawl space," he said. "Barely big enough to crawl in. We never use it." Selena forced a smile and nodded. "It's just wood and dust," she told herself. "I'm not a little girl anymore." She signed the lease. And in doing that, without knowing it. She invited herself into a house that already had company. Move-in day was bright and warm. Cardboard boxes are stacked in the living room. Alex is running in circles with a toy truck, giggling. For the first time in a long time, the sound of laughter filled Selina's chest instead of arguments and slammed doors. She set up Alex's toddler bed in the room near the hallway. Without thinking, she placed it so that when he lay down, he could see the ceiling light and the attic door. When evening came and the last box was pushed aside, Selina tucked Alex in. He lay on his back, small hands holding his stuffed dinosaur. His eyes were not on her. They were fixed on the ceiling. "Mummy, what's that door?" he asked. "That's just the attic, honey," she said, keeping her voice light. "There's nothing up there but old wood and maybe some spider webs. It's boring." Alex chewed his lip. "It's dark up there," he whispered. "So we stay down here where it's bright and safe," she answered, stroking his hair. "You're okay. Mommy's right down the hall." She closed his door partway, leaving a slice of warm light. In the hall, she paused and glanced up at the hatch. Her stomach tightened. "It's just wood," she repeated silently. "Just storage. Just nothing." That night, in her own room, Selina lay awake longer than she wanted to admit. The house settled around her with small pops and creaks. Then, sometime after midnight, she heard it. Tap. Tap, tap. Scritch. The sounds were light, irregular. Above her, right where the attic would be. She stared at the ceiling, every muscle tight. "It's just a squirrel," she whispered to herself. "Or pipes. It's an old house." The tapping stopped. Silence fell back over the house like a blanket. But the feeling of being watched from above, that did not go away. Days passed, and as often happens with new homes, life settled into a routine. In the mornings, Selina took Alex to daycare and drove to her new job. By the time she picked him up in the late afternoon, the sun slanted through the trees on Harper Street. They would eat simple dinners in the little kitchen at a small table near the window. In those hours, the house felt normal. Warm light. Cartoons on the TV. The smell of pasta and tomato sauce. Sometimes, while Selina cooked, she would see Alex sitting on the floor beside his toy box, talking softly. "Who are you talking to, silly?" she asked one evening, drying her hands on a towel. Alex looked up and grinned. "The nice man," he said. "Your invisible friend?" she teased. He nodded seriously. "He stays low, not up high." She didn't think much about that at the time. Toddlers talk to empty air all the time. Stress and big changes can make children invent comfort. That's what she told herself. Still, some things were harder to shrug off. The basement, for example. The entrance sat at the back of the kitchen, a narrow door that creaked, leading down steep wooden steps. The basement itself was unfinished cinder block walls, a concrete floor, and the smell of damp earth and mildew. The first time Selina went down there to store boxes, she felt an odd pressure in her ears, like when a plane is landing. It wasn't exactly threatening, just heavy. Sometimes, when she came home from work, she would notice the basement light shining under the door, even though she was sure she had turned it off. One evening, she needed a box of winter clothes. Alex was watching cartoons in the living room, so she told him to stay put and open the basement door. The stairs groaned under her weight. At the bottom, as she stepped onto cold concrete, a smell hit her. Cigarette smoke. Not the faint ghost of smoke from long ago. Fresh, sharp, as if someone had just exhaled right beside her face. Selena coughed and waved her hand, but there was no one there. She did not smoke. Alex was upstairs. All the small windows were sealed and grimy. Just as quickly as it arrived, the smoke smell faded away, replaced by the normal basement stink. "Okay," she whispered, grabbing the box and hurrying back upstairs. That was weird. Weird, but not yet frightening. Not like what was still coming. On a rainy afternoon, thunder tumbling in the distance, Selena sat in the living room with a stack of old photo albums. Alex had finally gone down for a nap. The house felt peaceful. Quiet. Outside, raindrops tapped gently against the windows. The sky was a soft, dim gray. She opened a worn album and flipped through pages of her younger self, college parties, vacations, smiles that felt like they belonged to someone else now. Behind her, on a wooden shelf, sat a small porcelain music box she had unpacked earlier. She hadn't touched it since placing it there. As she turned a page, a tiny clink sounded behind her. Then the soft, tinkling notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" drifted through the room. Selena stiffened. She turned slowly. The music box had fallen onto its side, its lid flipped open, gears somehow engaged. The melody was gentle, but wrong. Too slow in some parts, speeding up in others, like a child humming through a sad memory. Goosebumps rose along her arms. She stood, crossed the room, and closed the lid. The music died mid-note. As her fingers left the porcelain, a blast of cold brushed the back of her neck. It was not the cool of an air vent. It was the sharp, cutting cold of opening a freezer door and pressing your face inside. Selena spun around. No one stood behind her. The living room was exactly as it had been a moment before. But now the air felt charged, like the air before a lightning strike full, humming, waiting. Someone was there. Someone who liked lullabies. That night, Selena's sister Marie came over for the first time. Marie was louder than Selena, braver on the outside, quick to roll her eyes at anything woo-woo. Over mugs of coffee at the kitchen table, Selena talked about the odd things she had noticed. The basement is smoky. The music box. The tapping in the attic. "I know it sounds crazy," Selena said, trying to laugh. "I'm probably just stressed." Marie shrugged. "Old houses make weird noises," she replied, "and you hate attics. Your brain is filling in the blanks." Still, seeing the worry in Selena's eyes, she added, "Tell you what, I'll stay over tonight. We'll have a sleepover like when we were kids." The offer made Selena feel better. They made popcorn. They watched a silly, romantic movie in the living room while the rain outside turned into a calm drizzle. Around midnight, Marie yawned and went upstairs to use the bathroom. Selena stayed on the couch, the movie's soft glow flickering. She must have drifted off, because the next sound she heard was a scream. A child's scream. Alex. Selena flew off the couch, heart pounding, and raced up the stairs. Marie came out of the bathroom at the same time, eyes wide. They burst into Alex's room. He was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, clutching his dinosaur. His small body shook with sobs. "It woke me up. The banging," he cried. Selena climbed onto the bed, hugging him. "What banging, baby?" she asked, though she already had a terrible guess. "Up there," he pointed to the ceiling, voice trembling. "Up there, Mommy. Boom, boom." It was so loud, it woke me up. The attic. Selena swallowed hard. Marie frowned and straightened up. "Probably a raccoon or something on the roof," she said. "Let me prove it." Before Selena could stop her, Marie dragged a chair into the hallway. She set it under the attic hatch and climbed up, fingers reaching for the latch. "Marie, you don't have to," Selena started. But the latch had already clicked open. The wooden panel swung down with a long, complaining creak. Darkness gaped above them like a mouth. A gust of cold, stale air poured out, washing over Selena and Alex. It carried the smell of dust, old wood, and something else. Something sour. Something rotten. Marie coughed. "Wow, that stinks," she muttered. She grabbed a flashlight and hoisted herself up to the opening. Selena watched from below, clutching her son. The beam of light swung around in the attic above, casting moving shapes along the hallway walls. "Well," Selena called up, "do you see anything?" "Just dust and webs," Marie replied. "No raccoons, no monsters." Her voice changed slightly. "Hold on. What's this?" There was a shuffle of movement. Marie's light paused on something that glinted faintly. She reached down, fingers closing around a rough piece of fabric. She pulled back a tattered burlap sheet. Underneath lay a small pile of objects. Old photos. Empty pill bottles. And something that looked like a wallet, cracked and dry. Marie picked up one of the bottles, squinted at the faded label. "Jason Miller," she read aloud. "Prescription. This is 12 years old." One by one, she passed the items down to Selena. The pill bottles rattled softly. The photographs were yellowed, curling at the edges. Selena held one up to the light. A young man stared back at her. Thin, tired eyes. In some pictures, he cradled a baby girl. Page after page, he appeared again and again. Always the same man. The last photo made Marie suck in a breath. She climbed down, handing it to Selena with a troubled look. In the picture, the same young man lay on a basement floor next to a spilled bottle of pills. His eyes were closed. His skin was pale. In the corner of the frame, barely visible, was a faint, see-through shape. The outline of a person. "Okay, that's creepy," Marie said quietly. She shut the attic hatch with a firm push. Selena stared at the photo, her heart heavy. Her house. Her basement. Her attic. The man in these pictures had lived here. And if the last photo was what it seemed, he had died here, too. The landlord had never said a word about anyone dying in the house. Many don't. But now Selena held the evidence in her hands. A name. A face. A tragedy. Back in the living room, after Alex finally drifted back to sleep, Selena and Marie spread the photos across the coffee table. They saw Jason smiling with friends at a party, a beer bottle in hand. They saw him sitting on the back steps, head in his hands, cigarette smoke curling up around him. They saw him holding that baby girl, his eyes tired but soft. The pill bottles, all with his name, told another story. Painkillers. Anti-anxiety meds. Dates on the labels that ended abruptly. What if, Selena began slowly, what if he overdosed here, in the basement? Marie frowned. It kind of looks that way, she admitted, but what does that have to do with your weird basement and the smoke? Selena thought about the strong smell of cigarettes downstairs. The sudden cold when the music box played. Alex is talking about the nice man who stays low, not up high. You don't think he's still here, do you? Selena asked quietly. Marie opened her mouth to joke. Then something stopped her. Because when she looked toward the basement door, slightly ajar, a thin wisp of smoke seemed to slip under it and vanish. For once, Marie had no sarcastic answer. Later that week, while Alex colored at the kitchen table, Selena tried a small experiment. She stood near the basement door and spoke softly into the air. Jason, she said, feeling foolish. If you're here, thank you for being kind to my son, but if you know something about the attic, please help us. The house was silent. Then, faintly, from the living room shelf, the music box lid popped open on its own. The lullaby began to play. Alex looked up from his crayons, smiling. Mommy, he said. The nice man says be careful. He doesn't like the upstairs. That was the moment Selena's fear shifted. She was no longer afraid of a vague haunted house. She was afraid of something specific. The basement held a sad story and a gentle presence. But the attic? The attic held something else. Most people would stop there. They would put it out of their minds, sleep with the TV on, and pretend everything was normal. Selena tried. For a few days, she focused on work, cartoons, and groceries. But at night, as she lay in bed, the footsteps started again above her ceiling. Not taps now. Not light scratches. Steps. Heavy, measured steps crossing the attic. Back and forth. Back and forth. Each one carried a weight that felt like anger. Sometimes they stopped directly over Alex's room. She would stare at the ceiling, holding her breath. Then, slowly, the steps would resume, moving toward the hatch in the hallway, as if something was pacing, thinking, planning. The air in the house grew thick. Shadows seemed to cling longer in corners. The poor lighting and old paint of an old rental turned into hiding places for shapes that should not be there. Selina needed answers. On her lunch break one day, she drove to the local library. Dusty newspaper archives hummed softly in dim back rooms. She searched for the town's name, then the street, then his name, Jason Miller. There it was. A small obituary. Easy to miss. Jason Miller, 28, passed away at his home on Harper Street from an apparent drug overdose. No photo. No long tribute. Just an address, her address, and a short list of grieving family members. Painfully real. Back at home, she called the landlord. She did not accuse him. She simply asked, "Did someone die in this house before?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Finally, he sighed. "Yes," he admitted. "A young man, years ago. It was tragic, but the police ruled it an accident. He had problems. It was personal business. I didn't think it was necessary to bring it up." "And the tenants after him?" Selina asked. "The ones before me?" "They didn't stay long," the landlord said. "They said they had to move for work." His voice tightened, but I always felt like there was more to it. I've had trouble keeping people in that house. Selina hung up with two truths. Jason had lived and died there, and other people had left in a hurry. She was not imagining things. Something in the house was wrong. And whatever was in the attic, even Jason, from the basement, seemed afraid of it. The weeks that followed were a slow tightening of the noose. By daylight, Selina could still pretend things were okay. She could laugh with Alex, chat with neighbors, and enjoy the way sunlight fell across the kitchen floor. But the moment dusk settled, a different mood slid over the house. The attic footsteps grew louder. Sometimes they would race across the ceiling like someone running. Shadows appeared at the edges of her vision. She would think she saw a figure standing in the hallway, only to look again and find emptiness. Alex changed too. The lively little boy who once babbled to the nice man now played silently, eyes strained toward ceilings and corners. He woke up crying more often, babbling about a monster man who likes the high place. "The nice man is downstairs," he told her one night, rubbing sleepy eyes. "He doesn't like the monster man. He stays away." Selina's heart ached. How do you protect a child from something you can barely understand yourself? She started leaving lights on in every room at night. But light bulbs began to blow faster than they should have. One flickered wildly in the hallway under the attic hatch, humming softly. It would dim when she walked beneath it, then flare up the moment she moved away, as if reacting to her presence. The air under that hatch was always cold, even when the rest of the house felt warm. And sometimes, when she stood alone in that hallway, she felt a presence directly above her. Not just watching, waiting. It was time to call for help. Most small towns have at least one group of people who chase the strange. In this town, they called themselves a paranormal research team. Selina learned about them through a coworker. At worst, her coworker said, they'll tell you it's just old wiring and pipes. At best, They might give you answers. Selina dialed the number with shaking hands. She did not want to sound crazy, but she also didn't want to end up like Jason, another sad story in the paper, another warning people ignored. The team agreed to visit on a Saturday evening. 3 people arrived just before sunset. 2 men carried equipment cases, EMF meters, audio recorders, and night vision cameras. The 3rd member was a woman named Diane. She introduced herself softly and said she was a sensitive, someone who could feel and sometimes communicate with spirits. The moment she stepped through the front door, Diane's expression changed. Her pleasant smile faded. Her eyes widened slightly. "There is a lot of energy in here," she murmured, heavy, sad down low, angry up high. Selina swallowed. They started in the basement. Together, they descended the stairs, flashlights cutting through the gloom. The concrete floor was cool under their feet. The smell of dampness wrapped around them. One investigator placed an EMF meter on a crate, its small light glowing. The other set an audio recorder in the center of the room. "Is anyone here with us?" one man asked into the stillness. "If there is a spirit here, you can speak into the recorder. We are not here to hurt you." Diane closed her eyes, breathing slowly. "Jason," she whispered, "if you are here, we know what happened to you. We're sorry. We want to help the family living here now. Are you trying to warn them?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the EMF meter spiked sharply, its light flashing. At the same time, a cool breeze passed over the group, stirring dust and cobwebs. No windows were open. Selina felt a sudden sting of tears in her eyes. It felt like someone else's grief brushing against her. The team asked more questions. "Are you the one in the basement? Are you the one Alex talks to? Are you afraid of the attic?" When they later played back the recording, a soft, male voice answered that last question. Barely above a whisper, but clear enough to raise the hairs on Selina's arms. "Not safe," the voice rasped. "Attic, not safe." Jason was trying to protect them. But from what? With the basement session finished, the group moved to the 2nd floor while there was still a trace of daylight through the windows. The hallway outside Alex's room felt even colder than usual. One investigator brushed his arms and muttered, "Feels like a freezer right here." The EMF meter flickered under the attic hatch, even when they stood still. Diane closed her eyes again, stretching one hand up toward the ceiling. "It's angry," she whispered. "Whatever is up there, it doesn't want us near. It doesn't like that Jason talks to the boy." Selina had to fight the urge to grab her son and run out of the house right then. But if they didn't face it now, when would they? One investigator unfolded the attic ladder. The wooden panel lowered with a long groan, as if the house itself protested. A wave of air poured down over them. Not just cold. Thick. Oily. Carrying the stench of sulfur and rot. "It smells like something died up there," one man muttered, covering his nose. The other clicked on his flashlight and began to climb. Diane followed. The 3rd investigator stayed below for safety, along with Selina, who clutched Alex's small hand. From above came the sounds of feet moving on beams, the beam of their light sweeping back and forth. "It's small up here," one said. "Low roof. Watch your head." Then Diane's voice, strained. "Oh no." "What is it?" the man below called. "This isn't just dust," she answered. "Someone did something up here." They found symbols drawn on the rafters. Crude circles and sharp shapes that looked like they had been scrawled in charcoal or something darker that had dried to a rusty brown. In the center of the attic floor was a blackened ring, the melted remains of candle stubs, charred scraps of what looked like pages from a book. "Ritual," Diane said, voice shaking. "Somebody tried to call something, or open something." As she spoke, the flashlight in her hand flickered. Then the other investigator cried out. "Something scratched me," he yelled. He scrambled down the ladder, nearly slipping, and turned his back to Selina. Through the thin fabric of his shirt, she could see 3 long, red marks raking across his skin, already swelling and beading with blood. He hadn't bumped into anything. Something unseen had raked its claws down his back. At that exact moment, Alex screamed from his bedroom doorway. "Mommy, watch out!" he cried, pointing behind her. Selina felt a violent shove on her shoulder, as if a huge, invisible hand had slammed into her. She flew sideways into the hallway wall, the impact knocking the breath out of her lungs. The hallway light above her exploded, showering glass. In the brief flash of sparks, she saw it. Something dark poured down from the attic opening. Not like smoke. Not like a person. Like both. A roughly human shape, made of moving shadows, clung to the ceiling for a second, its limbs bent at impossible angles. Then it dropped to the floor with a heavy thud that made the boards quake. The hallway plunged into near darkness, lit only by stray light from the bedrooms. The shadow on the floor unfolded. It rose slowly, as if remembering how to be upright. It was tall. Too tall for the narrow space. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. Where a face should have been, there was only a darker blur. But Selina could feel eyes on her, hot with hatred. The air around it rippled. Paint on the walls near it cracked with a soft, sick sound. Diane, still at the top of the ladder, gasped. "It's not human," she whispered. "This thing was invited. It doesn't belong here." The investigator who stayed upstairs began to climb down as fast as he could, muttering prayers under his breath. "Take the boy," Diane shouted to Selina. "Get him out of the house." Selina forced herself up on shaky legs. Her head rang from hitting the wall, but adrenaline pushed her forward. She grabbed Alex, who clung to her neck, face buried in her shoulder. Behind them, the shadow entity moved. Its limbs did not bend like a person's. They jerked and twisted as it slid along the floor, almost gliding. As it passed under the attic hatch, the air temperature dropped even further. The breath from Selina's lips came out in clouds. The house itself seemed to react. Doors down the hallway slammed shut one by one, banging like gunshots. Family photos flew off the walls, glass shattering on the stairs as the investigators ran down. The shadow made a sound then. Not a word. Not a scream. A deep, vibrating roar that seemed to come from every direction at once, inside the walls, under the floor, in the air. Selina stumbled down the stairs, nearly slipping on a fallen picture frame. Behind her, the roar continued, rising in pitch. One investigator reached the front door first and yanked it open. "Go!" he shouted. Selina ran, barefoot, across the foyer and out onto the porch, still clutching Alex. The others tumbled out after her. The moment the last foot crossed the threshold, the front door slammed shut behind them with a force that rattled the windows. On the front lawn, under the dim street lamp, they turned back to stare. Inside the house, lights flashed on and off wildly, room to room, as if someone were sprinting through, flicking every switch. Bang. 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 The sounds of objects smashing against walls echoed even out on the street. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The house went black. In one upper window, for just a second, a shape appeared. A dark, distorted figure pressed against the glass, head bent at an unnatural angle, watching them. Then the window itself cracked from the inside, a jagged line crawling across the pane. Selina held Alex so tightly he squeaked. She could feel his tiny heart pounding against her chest. It was over for now. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. They would never sleep in that house again. Selina's sister arrived within an hour, having driven faster than she should across town after Selina's frantic call. By then, the investigators had packed their equipment, hands shaking, faces pale. "This is beyond what we handle," one admitted. "You have something truly dark here. It feels demonic. We can review the evidence, but you need religious help. A priest, someone experienced with this." Selina nodded numbly. Her whole body felt like it was buzzing, nerves stretched too tight. That night, she and Alex slept on her sister's couch. Alex refused to let go of her hand, even in his dreams. In the morning, under the safe light of day, Selina returned to the house with Marie and 2 friends. They moved quickly. Clothes, toys, important papers. No one went upstairs alone. The attic hatch stayed firmly shut. Interestingly, during the day, the house felt strange but quiet. No footsteps. No roars. Just a heavy silence, like a sleeping animal that could wake if they stayed too long. Selina broke her lease. To her surprise, the landlord did not argue much. He had heard enough in her trembling voice to know that something serious had happened. Out of concern for whoever might live there next, Selina reached out to a local priest recommended by one of the investigators. Father Jerome was a calm man with kind eyes. He listened quietly as Selina described what had happened. He did not call her crazy. He did not dismiss her. Instead, he said, "I've heard stories like this before. Not often, but they exist. I will go to the house. We will pray. We will bless it. Whatever was invited in can be uninvited." A week later, with the landlord's permission, Father Jerome and a small group from his church entered the house. Selina chose not to go. She had already seen enough. Afterwards, Father Jerome told her what happened. They began in the basement, where Jason had died. They prayed for his soul, asking that he find peace and move on, no longer tied to the place of his death. During that prayer, they heard a soft sound like a sigh carried on the air. The basement seemed to lighten, he said. Upstairs, they moved room to room, sprinkling holy water, reciting blessings. Finally, they reached the attic. When Father Jerome opened the hatch and climbed up, the sulfur smell hit him immediately. He said the candle ring and symbols were still there. The burnt book fragments were almost powder. Every time he sprinkled holy water and said the rite of exorcism, a deep, guttural growl reverberated through the beams, as if the wood itself were angry. At one point, a loud crack sounded one of the attic beams split along its length, though nothing physical had touched it. The group did not stop. They prayed until the sense of rage began to thin, like smoke blown away by a strong wind. In the end, Father Jerome believed they had shut whatever door had been opened by those old rituals. He could not say for certain that all darkness was gone, but he felt that the worst of it had been pushed out. He also believed that Jason's soul, freed by those prayers, was no longer bound to the basement. Sometimes, he told Selena gently, the dead cling to a place because they feel responsible. He may have been trying to warn you about what others brought into that attic. I think, now, he can rest. Selena did not move back into the house. Even if the dark thing was gone, the walls held too many memories. Instead, she found a small apartment in another town. New walls. New ceilings. No attic hatch above her son's bed. At first, Alex still woke some nights, whimpering about the high monster. But as months passed, the nightmares faded. He talked less about the nice man, too. Life moved on, as it always tries to do. Still, some scars do not show on the skin. For a long time, any sudden thump from the apartment above made Selena's heart race, her mind flashing back to the heavy footsteps in the attic. Any smell of cigarette smoke in a parking lot made her pause and glance around, half expecting to see a sad young man with tired eyes standing nearby. As for the house on Harper Street, rumors grew around it, the way they do in every small town. Some people said the priest's work had fixed everything and that the next tenant stayed without trouble. Others insisted the house could never really be clean again. Kids on bikes would dare each other to stand at the sidewalk at night and stare up at the little attic window. A few swore that, once in a while, they saw a face there. Not Jason's gentle, smoky presence. Something else. Something angry that its hiding place had been discovered and sealed. Selena chose not to drive down that street again. She did not need proof of what she had lived through. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still see the shadow dropping from the attic, unfolding like a nightmare into the hallway. She sometimes thought about Jason. About how a broken young man's life had ended alone on a cold basement floor. And how, even after death, he had tried to protect a child from something worse. In a house with two spirits, the human one had been the kindest. Selena's story is more than a simple ghost tale. It is a reminder that not every haunting is purely evil. And not every spirit is a monster. Sometimes a soul stays because it regrets. Sometimes it stays because it cares. And sometimes it stays to warn the living about something they cannot see. But there is another lesson in the attic on Harper Street. Someone, at some point, climbed into that cramped space with candles and a book. They drew symbols they did not understand. They called out into the dark, and something answered. So, if you are ever tempted to play with the unseen Ouija boards, rituals, summoning games, remember Selena, Alex, and Jason. Remember the shadow that crawled from the attic and threw a grown woman against a wall like she weighed nothing. Remember the scratches on the investigator's back, burning and bleeding from invisible claws. Some doors are hard to close once you open them. Some things, once invited in, refuse to leave. If this true haunting kept you on edge, take a moment if your hands have stopped shaking to like this video. It helps more people find these stories, and it tells us that you want more. Make sure you subscribe to True Haunting Log and turn on notifications, so the next time we unlock another case like this, you'll be there in the dark with us. And now, it's your turn. Have you lived through something you cannot explain? Have you seen a shadow where no one should be? Did you hear footsteps when you were alone? Felt a hand on your shoulder when nobody was behind you? We want to hear your story. Email your experience, whether it was a whisper or a full-blown haunting, to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. Your encounter may be the next one we bring to life here on True Haunting Log. Until then, check your ceilings, avoid the attic, and try your best to sleep.